We are live with episode 34 of the Blue Crocus Experience, and I'm joined today by Bruce Pulver. And this man has a very interesting story, a cool story, and we're going to dive into that. But I just wanted to bring him on for me to learn and grow through the message that he brings, but also for you, the listeners, to take some hope. And I think we're going to be talking specifically about that as we go through, but some hope and some perspective and another way of looking at the world around you. So Bruce and I met through Brian Hess, who's been on the show as well, on Facebook, and connected that way. And as I've gotten to know him, we reached out a few weeks ago, chatted on the phone, and I was like, hey, Bruce, we got to have you on the podcast. So Bruce, really excited to have you here. I'm excited for what you're going to bring to the show here today and excited to learn from you.
Well, thank you, Lewis. It's great to be here, and it's great to be with your audience, and looking forward to our conversation.
Excellent. Yeah. So if you could, let's just dive right into it and talk about the story. I learned about your story through the TED Talk that you had given, the TEDx talk. And for anyone listening, you can find that on YouTube. I think you said you're about passing the 60,000 views.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting and amazing, and actually overwhelming that it has been seen, 60,000+ times, which I had no idea, right? And you just so grateful that the message has struck some chords and has generated some conversation, which is really the intent of a TED, right? It's ideas worth sharing, and I'm just humbled.
Yeah. So that's a great listen as well. I think it's about 15 minutes, so you can dive into some of his story. But Bruce, if you could kind of start back at the beginning with your story, and then we'll walk through it, and I'll pull out things that I have questions about. But let's get to know you a little bit more.
Sure. Well, thank you. And so let's start kind of in the middle. We'll go backwards a little bit, and then we'll take it from there. So my whole mindset has grown to a place of sort of our words really matter, and the words that we say to ourselves and the words that we say out loud have a direct impact on our thoughts, our beliefs, our intentions, our outcomes, and ultimately, the actions we take and the results we get. And I sort of grew to that through my, sort of a life journey, which started with really a miraculous day one. Back when I was born and when my mother went into labor with me, she had a very rare and virtually non-survivable medical trauma during labor. Technically, it was called a dissecting aortic aneurysm during labor, where the arteries that lead the blood away from the heart, basically the lining of the artery tore open, and she began bleeding in between an internal wall and an external wall. If she would have bled through the external wall before they would have delivered me, and before the surgeons would have found it and started working on her, she would have passed away. Likely so would have I, because we were about 30 minutes drive from the home we lived in to the hospital. Sort of the miraculous part of that was the hospital that we went to was affiliated with Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. And there were some surgeons on faculty from Tulane University in New Orleans who had just gone through the process of perfecting some aortic valve replacement techniques. They were called over immediately and were able to start working on my mother, who, after they delivered me, plunged into a 60-day battle enduring 4 surgeries. 30 of those days were recovery. The first 30 days were surgeries before she had the opportunity to see me. And she didn't quit. She didn't give up. She fought through somehow and lived until I was 22 years old, which was the longest survivor on record prior to her event.
Wow.
The longest survivor was 72 hours. So I say that story as sort of back to the beginning, because what happened after that was normal to me, but I realized later in life, incredibly unique.
Mm-hmm.
She had a very positive outlook on life because of her emerging from, as she learned more about her situation, as she grew longer away from it, she realized the gift
Wow.
that she received of life. And my father was the silent patient in this whole process, not knowing about whether his wife was going to survive, having to take care of 2 kids. We had a couple grandmothers' health, et cetera, but he was very much a man who loved words. And I talk about in the TED some of the examples of things he did, but that sort of oozed into me just in life, loving words. So a positive energy and a love of words was just sort of a natural thing to me. And then as I started this conversation, I said kind of in the middle was this sort of appreciation for the power of our words. So how did I get to that point? After 25 years working in the healthcare technology business, I was laid off from a job that I thought was going to be my career, like the ending of my career. I thought I'd retire there, and I'd been there for a long time. And a lot of folks are going through some of those things right now. But so we'll dive into that a little bit more. But what ended up happening is that my mother's optimism of life and my father's love of words forged together the day after that layoff. And I began writing a single word, using the letters of the word to define it. And that word that I would write each morning gave me energy and gave me some strength and gave me some encouragement to take the next day and take the next day and take the next day. So that 420-day journey became a journal and then became the book, Above the Chatter, Our Words Matter. And so that's leading us to kind of having a conversation about sort of how does that work in my life, and what sort of lessons have I learned?
I love that. Yeah, you've painted the picture so much more concisely than I could have. And I purposely kind of left out the book part because the story is so key. And I think that leads up very well. So as Bruce mentioned, he has written a book. It's on the way to me. You can also find it on his website, Above the Chatter, Our Words Matter. But he kind of, Bruce, you kind of distilled the journey into that book. And so I'd love to dive into, that layoff period. Like you said, a lot of people have experienced probably layoffs, or they've lost their job, or, there's no certainty for their job or career, or maybe the company has gone bankrupt and they've, they just have no idea what they're doing. So I'd love to dive into that dark period that you experienced in the layoff. I would like to acknowledge first, obviously, your parents have instilled an incredible amount of optimism and positivity into you. That's obviously I'm really sorry that your mom did pass away when you were 22, but to have 22 years with her is incredible given the circumstances. So I just wanted to acknowledge that before we dive into other stuff.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I tell you, I kind of glossed over it a little bit, but let's dive in there, because it was a pretty dark time, right? I mean, I can remember the visceral feeling, just through my body when, the announcement was made, and how these things work, right? You get called into an office and there's an HR person there that you don't know. So yeah. That meeting's not going to necessarily go well, but you don't know what. But then that happens, right? And there's sort of, I don't know, I'm kind of a big Charlie Brown comic fan, and you kind of remember the teacher, womp, 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 womp. You hear all these things about the package and this is going to end, and you turn your badge in, all the things, and you're kind of going, wait a minute, did you just say that this has ended, or I'm being furloughed, or someone's taking my place, or the company's been acquired, or things are being shut down? So it took quite a while for that to sort of sink in, and I went through I guess all of the emotions, right? There's the denial. Wait a minute, you must mean the other guy, not me, right? Because you kind of start thinking about your performance, you're thinking about your confidence. Wait a minute, this can't be right. Then you kind of go into this anger mode of how could they 25 years, how could they do that? I mean, there was a list of probably 100 people on the list on this grease board, and they went and erased some names, which are the ones that were going to stay. And at the end of the day, mine was still up on the board.
Right.
Wait a minute, you kind of start thinking about that. And then there's fear and, devastation. Like, okay, I've got responsibilities that I have no idea whether I've saved, whether I haven't, whether there's a nest egg, whether I'm, living from, hand to mouth. It's
because you were
oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
You were a father at this point, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And all of that stuff, right? With not just the money and the bills part, but, when you're the dad or the mom, and you're both, providing for the family, safety and security are two of the main things that you're trying to provide in your house and your home. And comfort, not comfort like excess, but just a safe place, right? And can you keep that? And what is it going to be like? And all these things kind of go flashing through my head. And there was the spiral. There absolutely was oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Can I get out of this? What am I, you start asking yourselves all the questions that you've never had to really think about or ask yourself. So that's kind of where it started.
You have to tell the wife what's going on and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, I had a similar, not quite as bad, but I had a similar experience last year where I got laid off, and I had a 20-minute drive home, and it was just like flip-flopping between like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And panic and all of this stuff. And then I just walked in, and she knew immediately that something was going on. And I was just like, I just lost the job. Right. So how was that experience for you? Because that was a very, like, I, as I'm talking about, it's bringing back the emotions, right? That fear and panic, right?
Well, you nailed it on the head, right? And this isn't just a guy thing, right? You flip it. It doesn't mean to be gender related. However, our wives they have this sense. They just know. They just know when something is different. And, for me, I went in at 9 o'clock. I drove back into the driveway at 10:30. What are you doing home? Something happened, right? And that's when we were driving to work, and you had an office and all, which is a little different than these days. But yeah, so you're driving home by yourself, and like for me, it was like halfway home. I was thinking, okay, this can't be about me anymore. I now have 3 other people, 2 daughters and my wife. Okay, so what do I do, right? Do I man up and I've got this and do all that, or because you want to be strong, or do I just kind of come in and say, man, I just need what this home can give me, and hope that you have the but the support there. But it's a balance, because you don't want to disrupt. And I guess my faith basically helped me say, I will get through this, but my fear said, man, it better happen fast. I don't know how. What's next? And you kind of have to deal with all that stuff in your head. And that could have really been a dark time, and it was, right? I mean, I believe that I was given this gift of starting to write these encouraging words to myself as melding between both of my parents. And the thing I could latch onto was the fact that they were both gone and passed away, but there was something there that just clicked.
So you come home, you tell your wife, and then it was the next day you said that you started. Walk us through kind of that click moment. Did you think about it the night before and be like, okay, this is something I'm going to try? Because I know in our discussions, you and I have talked about how you're very much a committed to the process or committed to the commitment kind of guy, whether it be, a workout challenge or something like that. So walk us through that.
Yeah. So I think this process actually helped me become more of the committed to the commitment person, because actually it was a total surprise to me. I woke up, I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but when I woke up, and I guess I was, in the bedroom getting ready to kind of start the day to figure that out. And, day one of the new world, right?
Right.
A single word, I said, Bruce, you got to be strong. And I just started asking myself, well, what does that mean? What does it mean, strong, right? Go to the gym, what does it mean being strong? And I guess because of my dad's love of crossword puzzles and words and all that, I just wrote it down vertically. And I looked at it and I said, well, what does strong mean? And immediately, just boom, stand tall, remain optimistic, now go for it. STRONG just came out, and I wrote it down so I didn't forget it. I said, okay, well, that's interesting. And so let's try to find something today for which I can be strong. Strong for my family, maybe. Maybe it's strong for, just keeping my chin up. Maybe it's strong for, hey, read through that severance package program or that separation agreement. Just pay attention to it. Don't let yourself get, Bruce, totally spiraling. Just focus on trying to have a strong moment, even if a second. And that was okay, right? That was great. So I kind of, okay, we can. Then when it started repeating, like waking up at the same time, like 3 days in a row with another word, then I started to try to become intentional about it and say, okay, what's today? What's today? What's today? And that's how the process sort of continued. every morning. However, it grew some legs because I started sharing the messages with others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the gift to me became something I could share with others, which actually, quite honestly, lifted me. When I was in a difficult situation, I was able to get a nugget of feedback that these messages were also helping others that were going through something that I didn't even know about, right?
I love that. I love that. Can you have the book right there, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Can you hold up the cover to the screen just so people who are watching on YouTube can kind of get an idea? So there is the
Sure.
word strong, and you can kind of see how Bruce has written the words out similar to a crossword puzzle. So that's perfect. Yeah. And that book is basically a compilation. Is it, the 400 words? Talk us through what's in the book so that people
Yeah,
know.
there's I broke it down into chapters, and the chapters have various themes. It was a journal of 400 messages, not alphabetic, not by topic, not indexed. It was just what I did. And then so I spent about a day and a half at a coffee shop saying, okay, this is a chapter that sort of comes together. This is a chapter that comes together. So there's 16 chapters. I'll just give you the title of a couple of them.
Yeah.
Positive affirmations gets the doubt out. Determination, name it and claim it. I did every day of the week. So I did Monday through Sunday. That's a chapter. And then I did every month of the year, January through December. One of my favorite chapters is called Unique. And it's chapter 9, and it's Thank God No One Is Like You. And for anyone that has children approaching the teen years or in the teen years, that was sort of the focus of encouraging our youth to embrace the fact that there's uniquenesses about them, because as I was going through this change and this challenge, I started questioning my validity. Am I the sales guy that I think I am? I'm not that. I'm not this other person. I don't work this way. And that sort of was also self-daggers, if you will. I was probably stabbing myself somewhat emotionally that, I was doubting. So the fact that one of the words I wrote was unique is in YOUNIQUE, not UNIQ. Yeah. So that's a chapter that I really like to hang on, especially for, talking with our kids and others that, maybe questioning that they're not like everyone else. So I organized it into those 16 chapters that are themed, and then we just list the words, and, some folks read it cover to cover, and other comments have been great where they say, I just let the book fall to a page in the morning and there's a word for me. So, but I got to say that what this book has turned out to be and the way that it's impacted my life is like nothing I'd expected. And it's so humbling, honestly, that it has an influence and an impact on others greater than what I thought it would, and probably somewhat greater than maybe it even does for me. And it's so humbling and so rewarding to know that the ripple of the power of our words is impacting so many.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I mentioned this to you on our first phone call. I was like, when we first connected, I was like, this guy's a little, he's a little bit of a nerd here. Like, what's he doing talking about words? Like, how does that apply to me as a business owner? I always enjoyed reading and English and everything growing up, but it's just like, what is Bruce doing here? Like, what's he up to? And then as I got to start seeing, the messages come across your feed every day, and I hopped onto a few of your live videos, and as you were doing 75 hard and stuff, I started to see the passion that lies within you, and the passion to look at life from a different perspective. You kind of touched on it there with the first word that popped into your head. Obviously, that underlying mindset was there. You just didn't quite know it was there, and then it developed and became this movement, this thing that you've developed and kind of latched onto, which is really exciting. But I did want to say, for listeners, it might seem like an odd theme to have on the podcast, but as you dive into it, we're all looking to, as business owners, grow and develop and become better versions of ourselves. And there's ups and downs. There's, as Bruce said, and as I kind of related quickly, we've both had that layoff experience, or that basically end of life as we knew it. And so being able to look at things from a different perspective is so key. I actually do want to dive into the unique there, because I think it applies not only to teenagers. Obviously society is pushing all of us to be as similar to each other as possible, or we have to, try to be this the same as this one idol that may be, covering the magazines and whatever. But let's dive into that, because as business owners, no one else is like us, and so we each bring our own unique set of skills. So maybe I'll let you run with that.
Yeah. So and let's circle back on the business aspect too, because I do want to chat about that in a minute. So the word unique. I'll just read that sort of a couple sentences, and then the word unique, right?
Yep.
So unique. Thank God no one is like you. The concept of the popularity contest is hard to eliminate, especially in the fast-paced image is everything world of today. Please take pause and know that God created every person with unique gifts, talents, and purpose. Take a moment each day to celebrate your uniqueness, for these qualities make you the amazing gift that you are. That's the introduction to the chapter. And the first word we wrote was unique, U-N-I-Q-U-E. So the U is understand that you rock.
I love
Period.
that.
End of story. You're enough. As is, you are amazing. And yeah, sometimes that's hard to believe, but you just understand that there's more folks outside of your mind that are saying, man, Lewis has it going on. When in your mind, you might be saying, well, here are my limiting beliefs. But just take a moment to understand that you rock. That's the U. N is notice the nuances. They make you special. So what's unique about you, the nuances of you, what you're able to do, the gifts that you have, is what make you special, right? Not make you awkward or not make you not like everybody else. It's what makes you special. That's the N. I is internalize that uniqueness as a gift, not a limitation. It's your gift. So it might be a health struggle, let's say, that you might go, yeah, that's limiting. But how can that help you help someone else? How can someone see that you're persevering through a physical challenge or a mental challenge or a financial challenge? That's your gift, the fact that your uniqueness, and internalize that. So then the Q, which are hard, Qs are really hard in this exercise, is quick. High five yourself. So
I love
what
that.
I meant by that is give yourself some encouragement that as you go through this analysis of your uniqueness. And then the U is the letter U, the letter R. You are amazing. Deal with it, right? It's almost like a pat on the back a bit as well, right? And then the E for unique is embrace the difference. So the one thing that we no longer have teenagers. Our youngest is 20, but one of the things that I think is so overlooked sometimes about that, the younger society, the younger generation that looks to comparison, is the only thing they have in common is how different they are.
Right.
If they would embrace the fact that, wow, everyone in this room, everyone on this soccer field, everyone in this band, everyone in this play, everyone in this debate team is the same in the fact that they're unique, that they're different. And I know that's kind of weird and like kind of nerdy, like you said.
Yeah.
But so that's my approach to unique.
I love that. Yeah, because and as like I grew up obviously, and as a teenager, everyone wants to be exactly the same, and you want to be like the person that you idolize. But as I've gotten older and as I've connected with all the wonderful people on this podcast, and people like you, Bruce, is we all have strengths. We all have things that as a team and as a collective make this world a better place, right? I have some things that only I am good at, some things that make me Lewis. You have obviously this beautiful gift and many others. And that takes so much pressure off of me, I guess, and off of it should take pressure off of anyone who is listening or who is existing in this world, because just be the best you, develop the talents that you have, and then relax and let the rest of the people who surround you, feed into making you a better person.
Absolutely. I do think it's also important to pay attention to, as best you can, the folks that you do surround yourself with, because you want to create a mindset of acceptance of the difference, right?
Right.
The fact that, I can do a certain thing well or have a skill is actually off someone else's plate
Right.
versus me having to fill up the whole plate
Right.
and feeling inadequate potentially. On the business side that we were talking about, if I can go there for a second.
Absolutely.
So here's some ways that business leaders have taken what we're doing here and applied it in their business model from sort of a strategic or even a tactical standpoint, to help drive results, because that's really what this is about from a business perspective. It's kind of warm and fuzzy. Hey, he's got these words that kind of sound like poems. This guy's kind of off there. But I've also been in business for 30 plus years, and it's all about results and it's all about outcomes. I sat down one day with the chief revenue officer of a large company, and we had lunch together. And he said, I've got to grow this business, and I've got to grow primarily my responsibilities to grow the top line, to grow the revenue.
Mhm.
I said, okay, what does that mean to you? He goes, well, I've got to explore new markets. I've got to maximize the channels that we're in. I've got to look at my territory coverage, all these kind of tactical things in a business. And I said, well, what does it mean to you for growth? Let's just write it down. So we wrote growth vertically over lunch, and he wrote GROWTH. And when we left, he had his own word for what growth meant, which his plan was to then take it back to his team and use it as a symbol, use it as a encouraging, mantra or motto for the day or for the year or for the quarter. The same is true. I've met with a CEO who had just acquired 2 companies, and we did a day-long workshop with his staff around the word culture, because he wanted to meld 2 different companies that were obviously started by, from different origins, and combine and come up with a culture. So what we did there was we brought a group of, 20 people or so together. We put 5 at a table, and we asked them, what kind of company culture is going to make you jump out of bed, is going to make you engaged and make you on fire? And so we said, here's the framework. Let's use the word culture. Credibility would be C. U would be, understand our benefits, meaning as a company. L might be, lead by example. So we came up with the different tables worth of what that word culture meant, and they left with a unified approach to how they were going to meld their culture, where the employees bought in and actually participated in defining what that was.
That's huge. That's huge, because a lot of, the more I get into learning about business and developing my own business, you've got to have a mission statement. You've got to have, something that defines you as a company. So you're actually offering this as a service for businesses. Am I right? Going out.
That's right.
Can you do virtual and in person?
Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, virtual is kind of the way we all went right away. And whether it's a 30-minute or an hour, morning, let's get our day started, the huddle, that folks are virtually doing now, or if it's a keynote, a leadership retreat, whether it's a user conference for, bringing a group of an association together. We're doing a lot of workshops and talks that way, and we're finding new ways to do them, right, over the virtual approach, and hopefully soon back in person, because that makes a big difference to me. I love being face to face.
Oh, the energy of in-person events. I remember, as everything was kind of shutting down, I went to a networking event for Chamber of Commerce. I think it was about a week before, we weren't allowed to gather in person. And at that point, it was like elbow bumps or something, it just wasn't the same. Even though we were in person, it wasn't the same, as a good handshake, connecting with people. And, we've all gotten very comfortable being virtual, and it's beautiful because you and I can meet this way and chat, and I think people are more comfortable with that. But being in person, there's just an energy that you can't get through the screen.
Oh, absolutely. And so a couple of the cool things that again are part of what we're doing here with the book and the message and the speaking is, I truly believe that this whole process was a gift to me. Yeah. So when I'm booked to speak, or when, a company might say, hey, Bruce, we want to get a case of books for our employees or do something for customers, I then take and allocate some books to donate. So whenever a book is sold, a book's donated. And the the exciting part to me is where these books have landed based on the generosity of companies and organizations that have hired me. Hospitals, homeless shelters. We're doing some work at some exploitation and trafficked women recovery groups.
Wow.
The veterans organizations, et cetera. So it's just a joy to be able to say, okay, let's continue what I call the ripple, right? You drop a pebble in the water and see how far it reaches. So that's something that, again, because the message in the book and the message is we're such a gift, and the journey of turning the journal into more, it's been so rewarding to just be able to say, okay, we're gonna find a place for these books to land, and that's been such a joy as a byproduct of this process.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And I mean, not only, if companies are getting you on to speak or whatever, but every book that's purchased, you're donating it to a library or to a homeless shelter as well. So if you go to Bruce's site and purchase a book, there's, it's kind of like I forget right off the top of my head, but there are companies now where they'll plant a tree basically when you buy something. It's the same concept there, which is wonderful.
Well, I think that's important. I think the community wants that. I think the community needs it. And I'm not making an assumption that my book, you just lay it out there and everybody's life gets easier. That's not it at all. But what I have found is just through feedback, the message has resonance in certain places where other organizations are helping other people as a resource.
I love that. Cool. And I'll put the link below as well in all the podcast platforms. But Bruce, let's finish off here with the word hope. You and I were chatting off air before we started, and I think hope is something that all of us need to grab onto and gravitate towards, whether it be surrounding us with people who give us hope. But I'd like to dive into the word a little bit here, because there's only a few days left in the year, and there's the ability to hope for a lot of things. There's a lot of possibility in the days that are left, and then there's a whole new year with whatever it brings. So let's dive into hope and what that means to us as business owners and people.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of a buildup of you take the words and that I'm going to define here using the word hope, and it may sound a little bit cliche-ish, like, well, that sounds easy, but write it for yourself and see what that works. How it can come alive to you. And for me, as you can kind of back up to the beginning story again, with our family and hope, I was sort of raised with hope, meaning having overwhelmingly positive expectations.
Wow.
That doesn't mean it'll be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to come just because you say that. But when you have an optimistic and positive expectation, the energy can set itself into the right path of looking for and creating those expectations through your actions.
I love that. So, I mean, the positive expectations are good. So how can we implement, what is a way to work on our mindset, if you will? Maybe we are in a place that, the last few months have really gotten to us. So how can we go out, strong?
Yeah, hard, right? I mean, gee whiz, every time we turn around, it seems like another boulder is trying to fall on us. So here's what I've tried to do. I've tried to look at everything that is going on and look at it as the situation, not me. So what we're facing, whether it's a furlough, or you're not able to get your full hours in, or the job's been eliminated, or the kids are now at home, not working, you got to set up a homeschool situation, et cetera. Those are the circumstances, and that's the situation. That's not you.
Yeah.
What's you is, how do we own that up or deal with that and create something by which we know we're enough, getting into it. We are enough to start, and not let that own us and keep falling on us. Everything up to now we've lived through, and I get it. Sure. It's all tough, and it's Mental Health Week, Awareness Month, et cetera. So I don't want to minimize this in any way, but by just separating the situation from us and not letting it become us is one way to start thinking about. And then I'm incremental, right? I'm commitment to the commitment guy. Do one thing towards that expectation every day, whether it's a fitness program you say you want to get on, whether it's a health, nutrition, whether it's the job search, whether it's setting up that school, homeschool office. Don't try to be perfect from day one, but do something every day incrementally towards making it better.
That's huge. And I would say, as someone who's learning to be committed to the commitment, don't try and bite off a whole, well, if it's a fitness program, don't go into the gym for 4 hours a day, because that's not sustainable. Maybe in a year, once you've gotten used to the commitment, that's something that, you crave, right? But if you're not used to working out or whatever, diving into this like massive program might not be the best way to be sustainable. So as Bruce said, pick something small, whether it be writing down a word in the morning, not to belittle that, but something that doesn't take a ton of time, maybe 15 minutes a day, and then get used to that process, and then you can expand it. I think that's huge.
I would agree. And to add to that, I mean, you and I were talking about the 5K that you're getting ready for. So I went through that as well. I wanted to run. I lost a bet and I had to run a 10K. And it was like, okay, how am I going to do this? Because I really had not been a runner. So I decided that end of the bed at night, here go the shoes and what I'm going to wear, right? So the next morning I get up and I get to the end of the driveway, and what do I see up the road? A telephone pole. Okay, Bruce, you're going to get to that first telephone pole today. What is it? 60 yards? I don't know, however far that was. Okay, one more. And that was my increment. So at the end of a week, I mean, it might have been 7 telephone poles I ran, and then maybe I walked a portion of the rest. And then the next day I would try to get to another telephone pole and another telephone pole. And before I knew it, after a couple of weeks of doing it every day, I had a little bit longer running spell in me. So you're absolutely right. Make sure the way you can do it is do something towards the goal every day and celebrate what you did, even if it's, I tied the shoes, but I didn't get out there today, right? Or push through, especially when it's challenging, because on the other side of the challenge is where the joy is. So just a little bit more.
I love that. I mean, the journey of 1,000 miles is started with one step, right?
Yeah. But it's also not stopping the steps.
Yeah.
And when it's hard and when you feel, oh my gosh, I'm not there yet, but you're one more step closer. You're one step closer. And it sounds like a mind game, and it probably is, but writing 400 days and then doing the 75 hard and, doing my physical fitness stuff every day is just, it's almost like I owe it. I won't let myself down on those things. After you do them enough times, it's like, it's just part of my lifestyle. It's not a habit. It's not a resolution. Becomes part of my lifestyle. And you make incremental space for it, and then it grows more and it becomes part of who you are.
The momentum builds, and eventually there's a point where it's like, well, this is what I do. This is who I am, right?
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, Bruce, this has been huge. I usually end off with, what's something we didn't chat about that you want to add, or what is something to sum up to speak to fellow business owners who may be, struggling with mindset?
Well, first of all, I certainly can relate to, the challenges, right? This world is new for us. It's the first time we've all had to deal with the same thing in different ways. So I would just encourage everyone to, use their uniqueness, their creativity, finding a way. Sometimes you don't have to go through a wall when you hit it. Sometimes you can go around it, over it, above it, or sometimes bounce off it and go in another direction. So I would encourage everyone to stay strong, stand tall, remain optimistic. Now go for it. Keep their hope, have overwhelmingly positive expectations, and stay incremental and committed to the commitment.
That's beautiful. That's perfect way to wrap up with a strong message. Bruce, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you this morning. I hope that the listeners take away as much as I did. And I certainly, was encouraged more to continue down the path of commitment and positivity. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I will put all the links down below in the description. But if you want to just let people know how they can connect with you and where they can connect with you before we sign off, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the website above the chatter, ourwordsmatter.com. Also on Instagram and Facebook, above the chatter, Bruce Pulver. I post just about every day, try to put a new message out and some positive energy. So you can find those pages, you like them, send me a message. Those are probably the best ways. And I try to respond to everyone very quickly. So I want to thank you for having me on very much. It was a pleasure to have this conversation, and thanks for the opportunity to chat.
Absolutely. And just one more thing, you have an email newsletter where you'll send out a word of the day as well, so people can latch onto that.
Absolutely. Just we'll connect that way as well. I send out a daily message every day.
All right, guys, have a fantastic day. And Bruce, thank you so much.
My pleasure.